So I'm going to read a few more pages of The Bee Book by Charlotte Milner. And we have a special guest, Scooby, who's already sleeping. But he does like bees and he likes to chase them around. But don't worry guys, he doesn't ever get them because they fly too high for him. Okay. So, The Bee Book. There are around 20,000 different kinds of bees. Some bees live with lots of other bees. They are usually called social bees. Bees can be found all over the world. Bees can be found on every continent except Antarctica. Other bees live on their own. These are called solitary bees. Some bees are very big. The Wallace's giant bee is the largest bee in the world at just over 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters long. It can be found in Indonesia and lives in termite mounds. Interesting. Some bees are very small. The dwarf bee is the world's smallest bee at just 1/8 of an inch or 2 millimeters long. That's 20 times smaller than the Wallace's giant bee. You might need a magnifying glass to see this one. Some bees are angry. Killer bees escaped from a science experiment and have since spread across South and Central America. These bees get very defensive, stinging 10 times more often than other bees. Some bees can cook. When Japanese honeybees spot an enemy hornet, they form a hot bee ball by surrounding the dangerous suspect, and they cook it with their body heat. Some bees you might know already. Bumblebees are the fluffy bees that you may have seen buzzing around your yard, but you might not know that the Old English word for bumblebee is Dumbledore. Oh my gosh. If any of you read Harry Potter, you know that the headmaster of Hogwarts is called Dumbledore. But the most famous bee is the honeybee. We already read this page about the honeybee. The bee's knees. A honeybee's body is made up of 3 different sections. It has a head, a middle section called the thorax, and an end section, which is the abdomen. Its body parts make it very skilled at flying, finding flowers, and collecting nectar and pollen. Oh, a diagram. A honeybee doesn't have a nose. Instead, it uses its antenna to smell as well as taste. A honeybee has 5 eyes. It has 2 big eyes, which are excellent for detecting flowers, and 3 small eyes, which detect light. The mouth has a long tongue that the honeybee uses like a straw to reach into flowers and suck up lots of nectar. Legs carry pollen to the nest. The front legs push pollen off the bee's body and onto its back legs. From there, it is packed into pollen baskets. A honeybee stores nectar in a honey stomach while it is carrying it to the nest. Spiracles are tiny holes all over a bee's body that the bee uses to breathe through. Wow, I didn't know it had all those parts to it. Why do bees buzz? You have probably heard the buzz of a honeybee, but have you ever thought about what causes it to make that sound? For a bee to fly, its wings have to beat very fast. This makes vibrations in the air that we hear as a buzzing sound. For some bees, buzzing is very important. The bumblebee lets out a loud buzz while shaking its body and wings. This shakes pollen off flowers, allowing the bumblebee to collect more pollen to take back to the nest. The stinger. Honeybees use their stingers to protect the colony. Do all honeybees sting? No, only the female honeybees can sting. The male bees are harmless. I wonder what harmless means. What about you? What do you think? Does a honeybee die when it stings? Yes. When it stings a mammal, like us, a honeybee dies. Do you see how the stinger has a jagged surface? When a honeybee stings, the jagged spikes get stuck in the mammal's skin and the stinger is pulled off the bee. A honeybee can't survive without a stinger. The queen, however, is lucky. Her stinger has a smooth surface, which allows her to sting, and sting again without causing her any harm at all. If only I could turn the page. If only Scooby could help me. Aha. It is the next page. Hooray. We love honeybees and we love honey. Honey is really important to honeybees because they need it to survive the cold months. In fact, honey is so important that worker honeybees spend most of their lives making it. With the hard work of honeybees comes a sweet reward. Do you like to eat honey as much as honeybees do? Let's find out how honeybees make honey. So it says 1 teaspoon of honey equals the lifetime's work of 12 honeybees. Wow. So that means it takes this many honeybees to make this much honey. 1 jar of honey equals 55,000 miles or 88,500 kilometers of flying. That's 1.5 times around the world. Wow. So that means a honeybee would have had to fly this many miles in order to make that much honey. This is the last page that we'll read for today. Where does honey come from? Oh, this is the heading, so I'm assuming this page is going to tell us about where honey comes from. Some honeybees live and make honey in the wild. Others are domestic and make honey that is collected by humans. These honeybees are kept in beehives and are cared for by beekeepers. It is the special relationship between honeybees and beekeepers that allows us to find honey in the stores and on our breakfast tables. In the wild, honeybees make nests in rocks, hollow trees, and caves. We also know from that one video that the bees can even make it underneath a house. Remember when the guy was picking up the floorboards? Beekeepers keep their honeybees in beehives. These homes protect honeybees from the cold and rain, as well as keeping them cool in the summer. Inside the hives, honeybees build honeycombs and fill them with honey that can be collected by beekeepers and put into jars. Humans have been collecting honey for 13,000 years, which is a very long time. Jars of honey were even found in Egyptian tombs. The pharaoh Tutankhamun, thank you, Mr. Chowder, loved honey so much that he was buried with it. Meet the beekeepers. Why don't they get stung? Because they know the honeybee. Knowing about how honeybees behave and what they get up to inside the hive is important for keeping a healthy colony. Having this understanding allows the beekeeper to stay calm when checking the hive and collecting honey. A calm beekeeper means that the bees will be calm too, because they wear a bee suit. A bee suit has gloves, a hood, and a veil. So gloves, a hood, and a veil. Every part of a beekeeper needs to be covered so that they can't get stung, because they use a smoker. A smoker pumps out smoke around the nest and calms the honeybees. The smell of smoke makes the bees think that there is a risk of fire, and so they start to eat honey in case they need to abandon the hive. Stinging is the last thing on the honeybees' minds if they think there might be a fire. And that is all we will read for today. I hope you enjoyed the bee book and learned some more things about bees.